The very notion of time travel ignites a primal curiosity, a yearning to break the most fundamental chain that binds our existence, the unidirectional, inexorable flow of time. But before we can dream of witnessing the Cretaceous period or walking the marble halls of a future utopia, we must engage with the monumental how. How does one build a vessel not for crossing oceans or space, but for navigating the river of time itself? The answer doesn't lie in a DeLorean with a flux capacitor, but in the most profound and counterintuitive language we have for describing reality, the geometry of space-time, as dictated by Einstein's general relativity. Here, time is not a universal metronome ticking at the same rate for everyone, everywhere. It is a malleable, dynamic fabric interwoven with the three spatial dimensions into a single continuum. This is the first key. Time is a dimension, not just a measurement. And if it's a dimension, then, in theory, it should be navigable. The most plausible engine for such navigation isn't combustion or rocketry, but gravity itself. Imagine a vessel that doesn't fly, but rather manipulates the gravitational field around it. One method, a hypothetical Tipler cylinder, proposes a massive, infinitely long cylinder spinning at near light speed. Its immense rotational energy would twist the spacetime around it into a closed, time-like curve, a path through spacetime that loops back on itself. To an outside observer, the ship would appear to be circling this cosmic spindle, but from the perspective of those aboard, with each revolution, they would be completing a loop not just in space, but in time, arriving back at their starting point earlier than they left. An even more tantalizing, though arguably more destructive concept is the wormhole, a theoretical tunnel through the hyperspace that connects two distant points in spacetime. If one could create, stabilize, and crucially, drag one mouth of this wormhole at relativistic speeds, say on a journey to a distant star and back, time dilation would ensure that the moving mouth ages less than the stationary one. You would then have a bridge not just between two locations, but between two times. Step into the stationary mouth in the year 2200, and you could emerge from the moving mouth in the year 2100. The engineering challenges are, of course, beyond staggering. They involve harnessing energies on a stellar scale, manipulating matter with negative energy density, exotic matter, to keep the wormhole throat open, and possessing a control of gravity that is currently the stuff of pure theory. Yet the mere fact that these ideas are not outright violations of physical law, but rather extreme solutions to Einstein's field equations, is what fuels the engaged curiosity. It transforms time travel from magic into a potential, albeit distant, technology, a testament to the power of human intellect to conceive of manipulating the very foundations of the cosmos. This isn't about finding a crack in reality. It's about learning to speak reality's language so fluently that we can ask it to bend its own rules for us, to turn the map of space-time into an itinerary we can consciously choose, making the ultimate journey not outward, but along the fourth dimension. But the moment we accept the theoretical possibility of a time machine, our intellectual journey slams headfirst into the most famous and frustrating roadblock, the grandfather paradox. It's the ultimate thought experiment in causal violation. You travel back in time and prevent your grandfather from meeting your grandmother, thereby preventing your own birth, which prevents you from traveling back in time to commit the act in the first place. It's a logical Ouroboros, a snake eating its own tail, resulting in a universe that seemingly short-circuits. This paradox is more than a narrative trope. It is a profound philosophical and physical challenge that threatens to make time travel a logical impossibility before we even get the engine started. It forces us to ask, does the universe possess a built-in consistency enforcement mechanism? Engaging with this problem leads us down several fascinating rabbit holes. The first is the concept of the Novikov self-consistency principle, proposed by Russian physicist Igor Novikov. This principle asserts that any actions taken by a time traveler were always part of history. You cannot change the past because you already did what you always did. In this model, if you travel back to kill your grandfather, the universe conspires through a near infinite series of improbable events, a slipped bullet, a sudden change of heart, a mistaken identity, to ensure you fail. Your trick back is not an alteration of a timeline, but the fulfillment of a fixed, immutable past. Your presence there was always a part of events.
This view paints time as a single, monolithic block where everything is predetermined and free will is an illusion experienced locally along the timeline. However, for the truly curious mind, a more thrilling and bizarre solution emerges from the probabilistic, fuzzy world of quantum mechanics, the many worlds interpretation. In this model, pioneered by Hugh Everett III, every quantum event causes the universe to branch into a multitude of parallel realities, each representing a different outcome. Apply this to time travel, and the paradox evaporates. When you step into your time machine and travel to the past, you are not traveling back into your own history. You are branching off into a new parallel universe that is nearly identical to yours up to the point of your arrival. In this new branch, you can indeed shoot your grandfather. The consequence is not your own erasure, but the creation of a new timeline, a new reality in which you are never born. Your original timeline remains untouched, and you are now a refugee from a future that in this new branch will never exist. This transforms time travel from a historical editing tool into the ultimate act of cosmic emigration. Every journey into the past is a one-way trip to a new world, a new probability branch, forever severing you from the reality you left behind. This resolves the logic, but introduces a terrifying existential loneliness. You could never return home to see the fruits of your actions because the home you left is forever out of reach, a separate thread in the infinite tapestry of multiversal reality. The curiosity here is endless. Each solution opens new, deeper questions about free will, identity, and the very nature of existence.
Assuming the mechanics and paradoxes are solved, the why of time travel becomes a canvas for our deepest curiosities and our most profound moral failings. The initial impulse is one of pure, unadulterated discovery, the archaeologist's ultimate dream. Imagine verifying the exact hue of the sky over the Giza Plateau during the pyramid's construction, not from mineral analysis, but by simply looking up. Imagine hearing the true, unfiltered acoustics of the Globe Theatre during a premiere of Hamlet, with Shakespeare himself perhaps fidgeting in the wings. Imagine settling historical debates instantly. What was the true fate of the lost colony of Roanoke? Who was Jack the Ripper? Imagine a corporate entity going back to 19th century Pennsylvania to subtly discredit a young George Westinghouse, ensuring Nikola Tesla's AC current never finds a patron, thereby granting a monopoly on electrical infrastructure to Edison's DC for centuries. Imagine an ideology sending agents to ensure a specific religious or philosophical text is never written or is altered to serve a modern doctrine. The potential for temporal colonialism, the exploitation of the past for the resources, knowledge, and labor of bygone eras, is a horrifying prospect. It raises questions we are ill-equipped to answer. Do the people of the past have rights that we, from their future, are obligated to respect? Do we have a responsibility to prevent atrocities, to stop the Holocaust or the Black Death? And if we do, what are the catastrophic, unintended consequences of such a fix? Beyond the physics, the logic, and the ethics lies the most intimate and unexplored frontier of time travel, the profound psychological impact on the traveler. This is not a journey across space, but across the context of self. A time traveler would be the most isolated being in existence, an alien in every era, including their own. Let's begin with the simple yet crushing weight of nostalgia. You could travel to the Paris of the 1920s, but you could never truly be a part of it. You would be an outsider, your knowledge a barrier, your very demeanor marking you as different. You could observe the lost generation, but you could never share their genuine lived experience of a world recently shattered by a war they didn't yet call World War I. This leads to a more severe condition: temporal disorientation. Your personal timeline would become a tangled knot. You could have a conversation with your 10-year-old grandfather knowing his entire future, his triumphs, his regrets, the day he will die, while he sees only a strange, knowledgeable adult. This creates a fundamentally asymmetric relationship with all of reality, warping your perception of life, death, and consequence. You would witness events not as unfolding mysteries, but as fixed points on a chart you've already memorized. This could lead to a godlike arrogance or a paralyzing nihilism,
If everything is predetermined, do choices matter? But the most profound psychological shock would be the phenomenon of future shock in reverse. Returning to your native time after a journey could be utterly debilitating. The culture, the technology, the social mores, even the pace of life would feel alien. After spending months in a slower, more tactile past, the constant digital screech of the 21st century might be unbearable. Conversely, visiting a future of seamless AI integration and post-scarcity economics could make your own time seem like a primitive, brutal backwater. You would become a permanent exile, never fully at home anywhere, always comparing the present to a dozen other presents you've experienced firsthand. Your very identity would fracture. Are you a person of the 21st century if you've spent more cumulative years in the 18th? Which era's values are your true values? This internal dissonance is the ultimate cost of the ticket. Time travel, therefore, is not just a physical or technological challenge, it is a test of the human psyche itself. It demands a mind resilient enough to hold multiple, conflicting realities in its head without breaking, to be a walking anachronism, and to find meaning not in belonging to a time, but in being a permanent citizen of the entire human saga, a witness to it all, and thus a part of none of it. The final, most curious question may not be, can we build it, but are we, as a species, emotionally and psychologically evolved enough to withstand its truth?